Welcome to this house of memory and hope. We come together this morning from many different places. We gather from different homes, from different communities. Some have come a short way, and some have traveled many miles. Some of us have arrived here this morning alone, and some of us have come in pairs, and some have come with whole families. We gather in different numbers. We come together with different hopes, with different expectations, with different needs. We come with different thoughts. We're all being different and varying in our experiences. And each one of us sees the world from our own experience, our own perspective. We gather this morning from many places, yet though we come from different places, we gather for similar purposes: to seek strength, wisdom for living, to share in the celebration of this morning, and to be together. From many places we have come to create this congregation. Let us worship together now.
Share the message for all ages. And a special treat, all of the pages from this book will be shown on the screen as well.
Exciting stuff. Good morning. Today in Religious Exploration, the children and I will be creating peace cranes as part of a global peace project. And the peace crane is symbolic of long life and happiness. And I think that you're all very familiar with this because we have 1,000 peace cranes hanging here in the sanctuary. So yesterday was the United Nations International Day of Peace. And so in honor of that, the children will be creating art and writing messages of peace and then folding them into origami peace cranes and exchanging them with children around the world. So you also might see peace cranes showing up in our space here to offer messages of peace and love to you all. So if you come across one, you can open it up and see what it says inside. Because peace always, and we also want to invite you during coffee hour, we are going to set up a table so that you all can create your own message of peace and peace crane as well, and that we can include with our package with the group of children that we end up exchanging with. So, because peace on a large global sense always begins with our own personal words and actions. Today, our story is called The Mouse and the Buddha. And this is a very special story in our family. We've been reading to my daughter ever since she was a baby. So. It's ready. There once was a mouse who lived with a family high in the mountains of Dharamsala, India. The mouse was called Cece. He was a hungry little mouse. This is Tibetan for mouse, Cece. One night, he sneaked past the sleeping children and entered the temple where the big gold Buddha sat. In front of the Buddha was a feast for a king. There were oranges, chocolates, and butter sculptures that looked like delicate flowers. There were cookies, candies, and beautifully baked pastries in the shape of crescent moons. Cece sat and ate the treats and watched the candles and incense burn to nothing but stubs and ash. Oh, the Buddha loved the mouse's company. While the mouse ate, the Buddha spoke softly to the hungry creature and lovingly shared his wisdom. He said, "We all live under the same bright sun. Be kind to others. Be forgiving. Be patient. Have compassion for those less fortunate than you. Do not forget to love one another. This is a good way to live your life. As the Buddha spoke, Sisi thought about his family and friends and even the strangers he encountered on the street. The very next day, he began to live the life the Buddha spoke of. He planted a garden for a friend. He helped older mice get to the market for their bread and cheese. He visited those who were lonely and sick. Sisi was kind to everyone he met, even a cat. The next night, Sisi visited the temple again. As he ate, he told the Buddha all he had learned that day. When he was full and sleepy, Sisi licked the chocolate from his paws, wiped the pastry crumbs from his mouth, and quietly thanked the Buddha. Before Sisi left the temple, he scratched the Buddha on his big belly to make him laugh. Oh, what a joyous laugh it was. It rang through all the great mountains and over all the great oceans. Later, as the little mouse drifted off to sleep, whiskers twitching, he thought about the things the big gold Buddha had shared with him. Sisi liked one message the most. Do not forget to love one another, he whispered into the night, and off he fell to sleep. The end. And now, if you would all join us, we're going to sing the first chorus of This Little Light of Mine, and then the children will walk out to their religious exploration class.
In this special, lovely moment, we pause to reflect. May it be that we become more aware, always, of the amazing allurement which brings us together. This natural inclination to be with one another, to share our inmost heart's desire. And as we survey the world around us, all of nature as we know it and experience it, let us remember we will never enjoy the world aright until the sea itself flows in our veins, till we are clothed with the heavens and crowned with the stars, and perceive ourselves to be the sole heirs of the world, more so than ever, because others are in it, and who are everyone's sole heirs. As I was putting together today's sermon and service, I realized that the theme of it has been around all of this year, this last year that I've been here, the theme about growing and about growth and how it is that we expand our horizons and expand our activities and expand all the parts of our lives. And we have often talked about it as in growing a garden, and how we prepare the earth and plant the seeds and nurture the process of growth. There are signs of growth all around us here, and sometimes they look like little green shoots coming up out of the ground. And I'm not talking so much about numbers of things, the way we tend to talk about growth, about members and numbers of members or attendance or even budgets. I'm thinking of that larger vision of growth, namely the expansion of our spiritual community. And we surely think that that's why we're here. We're not here to be in the midst of a large group of people with a large budget, but we're here to be in the midst of a community which will help us to grow spiritually and to involve ourselves together in that process. And this congregation really is a place to grow. Each of us possesses deep within us our own holy potential, which is what Ralph Waldo Emerson called it. And the congregation is exactly the best place to nurture that potential and to watch it blossom and bear fruit. As we have spoken earlier, this idea behind the age-old institution of the seminary, which is another word for nursery, a place where individuals come to plant themselves and to be taken care of and to take care of others. There's a beginning, which is the planting of the seed, that holy potential that Emerson spoke of. And there is the growing time, the season, which is full of nurture and true regard. And there is the fruition of the lives of the people, and that is the flowering of true ministry, which each person can offer to themselves and to the congregation, and finally and importantly, to the world. The congregation really is like a seminary. It really is like a nursery. And when we're speaking of nurseries and growing, I want to specifically talk about organic gardening. And that's, after all, what we're doing in the congregation, organic gardening. There's a golden rule for organic gardening, and that is to always put back in the soil everything you have taken out of it. And what is really happening is the soil is being gardened itself, since that's what soil is. The produce from it will be of equal quality, excellence, and abundance. The top grade of the soil is rich with humus, which is a word directly related to the word human and directly related to the word humility. They're all of the ground. They come out of the ground. And this humus is fortified with nutrients of knowledge and of mindfulness, inspired with faith and warmed with true nurturing of one another, true regard. And whatever goes out of this place through you and your lives and your work and activity in the world must be replaced and is almost always multiplied. I remember the feelings well when I first entered a Unitarian Universalist congregation. As I have reported to you all in the past, I had rejected the church of my birth and everything churchy because of the negative experiences I had with that religion. We definitely had a parting of ways, and to tell you the truth, I was wounded by that. That is, the soil of that garden added adulterating elements that took away from the organic formation of my spiritual self, my holy potential. The experience I had in my first UU congregation was one of a sense of the opposite, of expansion. I could finally see the exciting possibilities which lay before me. And as I've said, the message of the place and the people and the faith was a resounding yes. And not just that, but a resounding yes to me as a particular person named Thomas, with a particular energy, with a particular talent, with a particular substance, with a particular nature. The message was, You are a valuable person who has within you enormous potential to do good in the world and to yourself. Furthermore, the congregation said, we will help you along. We will nurture your nature. The message is located in the third of our principles and purposes statement. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. And it's even in Live Oak's own mission statement that says, our generations join together to nurture spiritual growth and personal transformation, that we may be inspired to transform the world with love, hope, compassion, and justice. What an almighty mission that is. In my case, I think I already knew what my mission was when I got to UUism, but I also believe that the congregation is an excellent place to discover what your calling is. That's because the congregation is one of the few places that takes this kind of thing seriously. And more than that, it's one of the places where your value as a unique human being and your growth are sacred matters. What other place makes it a sacred matter how you're doing? How you're doing in your body and how you're doing in your spirit. They are part of the mission of this congregation and of our worldwide religious movement, I think. Where else can you go to be affirmed in this way? We are, after all, talking about your holy potential. One of the things that church does, I think, so well is to help people investigate that potential. Investigate, first of all, what it is and how it is formed and what's going on with it, but then also to know that it is a holy and sacred thing. I love it when people say to one another in the congregation, I see that you have the gift of artistic expression. I see you're a good singer. I see you're a musician or an artist or a writer. I see you're a gardener. And you look back at them and say, hey, that's true. I don't think I ever realized that before. And then the conversation continues by saying, and let's do that here. Let's make that holy potential happen right here in the congregation. Why don't you come in here and sing a song on Sunday morning? Why don't you come and develop a creation of art so that this place embodies what is the best of human nature and human potential? So what is your calling? Have you discovered your own calling? Remember that thing about from James Hillman, the thing about the acorn theory that believes that says that within us we each have a very special code, which Emerson called the potential. And William Ellery Channing, the first president of the American Unitarian Association, called this our true soul, that thing that is within us, that is our potential. And this goes back even further. The Greeks said every human being has an idea. Every human being has an idea. And then the Romans went further with that by saying every human being has a genius that makes them who they are. Their holy potential is a genius. And that word genius is related to the word genie, which is the potential which lives inside the lamp. I like that. I like the idea that I have an idea, that I am an idea, and that I have a genie inside of me, ready to emerge and to do the most wondrous and beautiful things in the world. I like the idea that the congregation is a place where that can be realized and then where that can happen. I even like the word calling, which is a Latin word from vocare, which is where we get the word vocal and vocalize, and also vocation. What is your vocation? Which is, what is your calling? What is your holy potential? My calling could come from my very nature in the same way that what I am physically comes from my very nature, which we call the DNA code. Inside that code is my particular nature. And my genes are the eon-long outcome of countless generations which have gone on before me, in whose shadow I stand today. In this sense, my physical body has been called forth by the ancestors. And I believe it is true that I can still hear their voices speaking to me at the most important and necessary moments of my life, and that's how I know about my calling. It is the calling of the ancestors. In this sense, that calling is very powerful. In the acorn or any other seed, there's a message of what that seed can be when it grows up and out. And even though we can vary the necessary requirements for that growth, we can give that seedling more or less water or food or sunlight or even nurturing, we cannot change the code of what it is. If it's an acorn, the grown-up version of it will be an oak tree and not a fir tree or even an elm tree. If it is a daffodil bulb, the mature plant will be a daffodil, albeit so ever unique. But it will never, and it can never, be a watermelon or a tulip or an iris. That's the nature part of this. We all have our nature encoded into us. The nature of a daffodil bulb is that it is a daffodil. The other part, which is the nurture part, comes next. I can have a tremendous effect on the way my mature plant will look and feel by the kind of nurturing that I give to it, the kind of care I give to it. It can make a large difference whether or not the plant has been cared for and how it has been cared for. It may turn out to be withered or overwatered or diseased, and it may even die, and many times it depends on what that plant's environment is. And we can make choices about our own nurturing. We can choose this or that watering plan, or this or that fertilizer and frequency of feeding. We can make a decision on where the plant ought to grow, in full sun or in the shade, indoors or outdoors, to be maintained all year long as an annual or as a perennial, and to allow it to go dormant. There's a great deal of leeway given the particular of the zillions of kind of plants that there are and the zillions of kind of people that there are. We cannot make choices about our nature. No matter what people say, a tulip is a tulip. No matter what, I'm the product of my genes. I'm a male, Caucasian, Sicilian, English, a certain body shape, large, a limited intelligence quotient, certain manual dexterity or lack thereof, and that's who I am. Notice how some of these aspects of who I may be, they may be debatable in their immutability. For instance, some people say that a person's IQ can be increased. I think that my ability to play the piano, whatever that is, was somehow inborn, but I certainly did put a lot of work into trying to increase that ability over the years. The same with my singing voice, which some have advised me to just give up on. And then there's the current nature-nurture debate in regard to gay people. And this has really been in the news in the last couple years. Am I born that way, as Lady Gaga says, born this way, or did my family situation turn me into that? Was I recruited by an older gay person and made into a gay person? These questions, believe it or not, are not are actual questions that come in the political arena nowadays. And amazingly, they have laws attached to those questions. Is this my nature or is this my nurture? Can I choose to be who I am, or am I what I am without choosing? I can also understand that I am constrained by my nature. Sooner or later, I must accept certain things about who I am and what I am, since they are my nature, and they are not the result of a choice I've made. And I would like to say the same thing is true about our soul's nature. There's something inside of us which identifies us, and even though the nurture we receive or do not receive may vary widely, and even though the environmental effect may be devastating or overabundantly beneficial, my true identity, the truth of who and what I am, will not change. Like James Hillman, who came up with that acorn theory, I would say that I will never truly be happy and enjoy a sense of fulfillment in my life or completion in my life until I make that inner soul, that holy potential, come to life in my life. That fulfillment could very well be the definition of happiness. We can choose much about our lives. Identifying our choices, of course, is always the issue. Have you heard that story they tell in Germany about a circus bear who was in a 9-foot by 9-foot cage? And he was there for many years in the circus. And it seemed that the bear was terribly abused, a small European circus. And this poor bear lived its entire existence in a wagon cage, precisely 9 feet by 9 feet, a terribly cramped space for an animal as large and as lumbering as a bear. The creature endured all sorts of painful vicissitudes. He received food and water and grooming and medical attention with indifferent infrequency, and took on a mangy, bedraggled look. He was jostled about mercilessly in his small cage as it bounced along the rutted roads, and was left exposed to all the cruel extremes of the seasons. And circus goers would often poke and prod at him through the bars. Mercifully, one day when this little circus failed, the battered bear was sent to the famous Berlin Zoo. And it was released into a large and luxurious bear area, which had flowing water and bathing pools and trees and ledges and lairs, and best of all, other bears to play with. A humane and happy home for any bear. But though released into this vast and interesting new home, day after day, the broken bear did nothing but pace that 9-foot by 9-foot square. For as long as that bear lived, it continued to enslave itself, even in the midst of expansive freedom. He never learned that he was free to frolic with the other bears. Have I ever learned in my life that there's something beyond this little space which my environment wants to put me. Will I ever be able to go out of that space? Will you be able to go out of that space? To come face to face with the reality of our human condition, I think, is the primary work of the spiritual pathway. There are huge and consequential features to this reality, and some are by nature, and some are the results of our response to the environment we have lived in. I believe for the benediction and the song. Light and darkness, night and day, we marvel at the mystery of the stars. Moon and sky and sand and sea, we marvel at the mystery of the sun. Twilight, high noon, dusk and dawn, though we are mortal, we are creation's crown, in flesh and bone, in steel and stone. We dwell in fragile temporary shelters, resplendent skies, sunset, sunrise, the grandeur of creation lifts our lives. Evening darkness, morning dawn, renews our life, grows our life, nurtures our life to renew all time.